Right. So very good evening, Lamai. Quickly give me a feedback. Can you all hear me properly? Can you all hear me properly? Okay, no? People who are watching the on YouTube as well, quickly give me a feedback. Can you all hear me properly, Lamai? Everything is okay, ne? People who are on YouTube also give me a feedback. Are okay, right. All right. Therefore, my people who are there on Zoom as well as people who are there on YouTube. So today we are doing the discussion as a free discussion. They can drop me a message right through the chat box. Hurry. So today, Lamai, we are going to discuss the grade 10 history unit test number 2 paper. Today we are going to discuss the grade 10 history unit test paper number 2. So last week we had the exam and I released the marks also, and the people who got the top 10 places, right? People who got the top places also, that I have displayed them through a poster, right? Therefore, Lamai, now our exam is done. Today we are doing the discussion. So once after the discussion, next week what are we going to do is, next week we are starting the unit number 3 of your grade 10 syllabus, which is evolution of political power in Sri Lanka, right? Therefore, we did the unit number 1, we did a unit test, and then unit number 2. So today is the discussion. Hari, right? Therefore, my unit number 2 is about the ancient settlements of Sri Lanka. So when it comes to ancient settlement, we have discussed about 3 main ancient settlements in Sri Lanka. We have discussed about 3 main ancient settlements. So what are the 3 main ancient settlements? One is the prehistoric era, right, as we already discussed, and then the proto-historic era. Third one is the early historic era. So are these things very important? Yes, because when it comes to your O-level paper, sometimes in the part 2, the first essay question itself comes from this unit, which is the ancient settlement unit. So in the future, when we do full papers, that we will understand. So it is a very important area. Harine. Right, and then Lamai, for MCQs also, normally if you look at the past papers, you will understand like 3-4 questions, right? At least 3 questions, minimum 3 questions come from this area. Therefore, it is very important to have a proper understanding about this unit. Therefore, in the theory class, already we have completed this unit, right? So we were doing this unit for around 4-5 weeks. And then, right, I hope that you all understood the lesson in the theory, but you may have questions. Questions are different. Right now my paper is according to O-level standard paper. Therefore, through the papers, what you have to understand is, you have to understand the paper structure, right? In O-level, what type of a paper that you are going to get, that you need to understand that paper structure, right? You need to understand that paper structure. Right, then Lamai, we'll go into the paper and we will start our discussion. We'll go into the paper and we'll understand the paper. MCQs. First, I have given around 20 MCQs, and then we can move into the part 2, right? So we will slowly discuss this. People who are there in the class. So I have given today as a free discussion. People who are there in the class up until the end, right? Up until the end, I want all of you to be here in the class, right? Up until the end, I want all of you to be here in the class. Right. Not an environmental zone in the expansion of settlements in Sri Lanka. Now we have discussed in the expansion of settlements in Sri Lanka, there are 6 main environmental zones. Can you remember? Wet zone is there, lowland dry zone is there, lowland intermediate dry zone, mountainous dry intermediate zone, arid zone, and the semi-arid zone. Out of those, the arid zone, no. So arid zone means the zone, the rainfall is very less in the arid zone. So when it comes to the arid zone, there are only 2 categories of arid zone. Either it needs to be arid or semi-arid. There is nothing called lowland arid zone. That is completely a wrong answer. There is nothing called lowland arid zone. So in my question that I usually, right, my way of asking question is to underline the incorrect answer, to underline the not. When you are reading the question, you need to understand whether I am asking you to underline the correct answer or the incorrect answer. Okay, so that is the mistake the most of the students do. Now in our 23 class also that I noticed it, in our 24 O-level batch also I noticed it, and in our 25 the recent batch also that I noticed. When they come across a question, they underline what they know. You should not do like that. You should underline what the question asks. So in order to do that, you need to read the question completely. Right, therefore answer is lowland arid zone. Oysters can be mostly found in. Oyster means Lamai, let me show you. It is a, right, it is a seafood. So can you find the oyster in a dry area, right? In the dry zone of Sri Lanka, can you come across the oysters? Answer is no. Therefore, let me show you the oysters. there's a small issue in the typing. Hari. Anyways, lamai, later I'll show it. There's a small issue here. Hari. Therefore, lamai, oyster is kind of a seafood, right? Oyster is kind of a seafood. Therefore, can you find the oyster in the arid zone or semi-arid zone or mountainous zone? Answer is no. You can find the oyster in the wet zone of Sri Lanka. You can find the oyster in the wet zone of the Sri Lanka. Therefore, for the first question, answer is answer number 2. For the second question, answer is answer number 2. Now only we are coming into the prehistoric era, protohistoric era type of questions, right? Now only that we are coming into the prehistoric era, protohistoric era type of questions. Now here that I will give you a proper idea what is the prehistoric era, what is the protohistoric era, right? I'll be giving you a clear idea, right? Hari, now when it comes to the question number 3, take out the blank paper, right? Now whatever the things that I am giving additionally, that you need to write it on the paper and attach that to the question paper. Hari, right? Now lamai, when it comes to the ancient settlements of Sri Lanka, when it comes to the ancient settlements of Sri Lanka, we are dividing the ancient settlement of Sri Lanka into 3 categories, right? We are dividing the ancient settlements in this unit into how many categories? We are dividing the ancient settlements of Sri Lanka into 3 main categories, right? We are dividing the ancient settlements in Sri Lanka into 3 main categories. Number 1 is we need to understand about the prehistoric era. Okay, prehistoric era. And then the number 2, what we understood was protohistoric era. Therefore, number 1 is prehistoric era. The number 2 is protohistoric era. And the third one is the early historic era. Third one is the early historic era. Hari. Now, these are 3 main settlement eras that we are supposed to study under this unit. Now, if you look at these 3 eras, prehistoric era is a time period where there were no any developments in the human civilization. There were no any developments in the human life. Okay, people are living a very basic life. There are no any developments. Later I'll tell you what are the features. But when you look at the protohistoric era, lamai, compared to the prehistoric era, protohistoric era is somewhat good. Therefore, the protohistoric era is somewhat developed than the prehistoric era. We can't say protohistoric era is the most developed time period. But compared to the prehistoric era, there is a considerable amount of development in the protohistoric era. There is a considerable amount of development in the protohistoric era. Then lamai, what do you mean by early historic era? Out of these 2, 3, the most developed time period is the early historic era, right? The most developed time period in terms of technology, in terms of the lifestyle of the people. There is a very big development that you can see in the early historic era. Okay, now you should not accept it. Now you want to ask me, so what are the proof for this? Already that we have discussed the proof. Now what are the proofs that you can use? In prehistoric era, right, I told that there is no any developments. How you are going to prove that in the exam paper? When you are writing essay type answers, how you are going to prove that? You need to prove that, right? You can't just say, there is no any development. You need to prove that. Proving is mandatory. Proving is essential. Number 1 is, if you look at these people, these people were doing roaming and hunting. These people roam here and there. They were roaming here and there. They did not have any permanent way of getting their food. They roam here and there, they go here and there, and when they come across an animal, they used to hunt that animal. When they come across any animal, they used to hunt that animal. We call it as roaming and hunting. We call it as roaming and hunting. Haridalamai. Number 2 is, they did not have permanent settlements. No permanent settlements. They did not have permanent settlements. Then where did they live? Now the question is, if they did not have permanent settlement, where did they live? During the rainy season, they lived inside the caves. And during the other season, when the rainy season is over, they lived on trees. Therefore, here you need to understand they did not have anything related to the development of their lifestyle. They are having a very basic amount of, right, very basic lifestyle. And also, when it comes to their technology, they used only the stone tools. Now, when a person die, they used to dig the ground, right? Sometimes using sticks, stone tools, right? And then when it comes to roaming and hunting, in order to hunt the animals, they use the stone tools. Therefore, here you have to understand they don't have any development at all. That is what we are learning entire, right? Out of this unit number 2, ancient settlements. In this ancient settlements unit lamai, mainly we are learning about these people's very nomadic, very basic lifestyle. So in Sri Lanka today, a similar level of lifestyle is there. You can see them in the Vedda community. Today, the Vedda community in Sri Lanka are having a lifestyle which is very much similar to the prehistoric era. Am I clear? Therefore, they are also roaming and hunting, no permanent settlement. They are using stone tools even in order to get the fire. You all know that there is a method, right, where they rub 2 stones, right? So likewise that they get the fire. Therefore, they are having a very basic, a very nomadic lifestyle. But if you look at the proto-historic era of Sri Lanka, at the very beginning I told you, when compared with the prehistoric era, you can see a development in their lifestyle. There is a considerable amount of development in their lifestyle. What are the proof? Number one is they are starting to build the permanent settlements. They are starting to build the permanent settlements. What do you mean by permanent settlements? Permanent settlements mean houses. The best example is the house of Udarancha Madama in Ratnapura district. For the first time in Sri Lanka, the houses were permanent settlements were built during the proto-historic era. And then if you look at the proto-historic era, they are starting to use iron tools. They are using iron for their day-to-day activities. And also, now they are not roaming and hunting. Not only that, they are starting to do agriculture. Agriculture was also one of their methods in order to secure their food requirements. They are starting to do agriculture. And then they are starting to make clay pots. Right? People in the prehistoric era, they don't know even what is a clay pot. But in the proto-historic era, they are starting to make the clay pots. And if you look at their burial system, once a person dies, here they are just putting him inside the ground. But in the proto-historic era, there is a methodical burial system. There is a method in the burying of the people, right? There is a methodical burial system that you can see it in the proto-historic era. Therefore, you need to understand, when compared with the prehistoric era of our country, proto-historic era is developed. In essay type questions, in our paper also, I have given essay type question. Mainly they ask about these features only. You have to put the heading and you have to explain. You have to put the heading and you have to explain. Then, early historic era. What are the developments you can see in the early historic era? The main index, the main feature, right? The main characteristic of the early historic era is they started to build the tank systems. Expansion of village tanks. Expansion of tanks all over the village. That is one of the main feature. That is the main index, right? Therefore, the main index in MCQs also, they can ask you, The main index is expansion of village tanks. Expansion of village tanks. Therefore, since they are having the expanded village tanks, not only the paddy cultivation, they are also doing the chena cultivation. They are also doing the chena cultivation. Apart from paddy, they are cultivating so many other crops. They are also doing the chena cultivation. What else, Lamai? There are villages based on the professions. There are villages based on professions. For example, if you look at some villages, in those villages, only the people who work in the gem mines are living. We call it as Manikaragama. In some villages, people who do pottery, only they live. We call it as Kumbukaragama. In some villages, only fishermen live. We call it as Kevattagama. Therefore, when you are writing an answer, that you need to use these points. Hari, your answer should consist of these points. Hari, so people think history is easy. Yes, easy, but that you need to understand the correct structure, right? The way of writing. If you don't understand what are the points you need to include, Lamai, maybe you will write for 2-3 pages in the exam, but you don't know the proper essay writing method, and you don't know, right, how to organize the facts and what are the facts to be written, right? Therefore, you don't get a pass. Therefore, in order to get an A pass, you need to understand, right, each and every point under one heading. Therefore, in this unit, prehistoric era, you have to understand these factors. Protohistoric era, you have to understand these factors. Early historic era, you need to understand these factors. Therefore, throughout this paper, you will meet something out of this only. Therefore, this is the mind map, right? So this is the sketch. This is the main idea behind this, right, lesson, ancient settlements. Hari. Now, people who understood this, quickly put a heart. People who understood this, quickly put a heart. Excellent. On YouTube also, people who are watching on YouTube also, quickly put it to the chat box. Did you all understand this area? Excellent. People who are watching on YouTube, right? Hi, quickly put it to the chat box. Did you all understand? Did you all understand? You all can put it to the chat box. Ne? On YouTube, there's a chat box. Go to the YouTube chat box and put a message. Okay, put a message, right? Okay. Okay. Now, Lamai, take out your paper. Now, I told you that you need to have a paper when you are coming for this discussion. Write down this on the paper. Write down question 3 and write down this. Then we'll discuss the other questions as well. Write down this question. Write down this note in your. Don't write in the book. Write down in the papers. Expansion of village tank. Expansion of tank. Yes, Riafa. They lived in outside also. Mean by permanent settlements? Permanent settlements mean houses. The best example is Okay, nice, Kidash. But I couldn't in the event as I was out. Excellent. So you have studied for 5:30 to 9 in the sense, right? It's a good time, right? So continue it. Very good. Excellent. Nice. Hari. Now we'll go into the next question. Hari. Now going to the next question. Underline the incorrect statement out of the following. In lowland dry zone, people mostly consumed animals such as deer, iguana. That is correct. The place Pahiyangala stands out as an evidence of prehistoric era before 38,000 years. That is correct. Stone Age community. What is Stone Age community? Stone Age community mean, write it on the paper itself, prehistoric era people. Right? Similar name for the prehistoric era is the Stone Age. You have the paper, you can download it, right? I have sent it in the channel. Historic era. Right? Prehistoric era people are known as the Stone Age community. Have they, right, expanded themselves in 7 main environmental zones? No, they have expanded in 6. Therefore, this is a completely wrong answer. Therefore, for question number 3, answer number 3 is the incorrect answer. Which place reveals that 12 skeletons were belong to the prehistoric era in Sri Lanka that was excavated with the archaeological excavation. Now, this is a prehistoric place. And I want all of you to give me the answer. Put it to the chat box. Put it to the chat box. What is the answer for the 4th one? People who are watching on the YouTube as well, right? Quickly put it to the chat box. 12 skeletons were found, right? 12 skeletons which belong to the prehistoric era. Put it to the chat box. What is the answer? This is the answer. 1, 2, 3, or 4. What is the answer? Answer number? Very good. Answer number 2. In the Kitulgala Belilena only that you can find out, right? People say 12 skeletons, right? 12 skeletons. Right. Just now I told you which era in Sri Lanka has similar characteristics, right? Which is very similar to the Vedda community, right? In Sri Lanka, right? Similar to the Vedda community. What is the type of group, Vedda community, similar to which era? It is the prehistoric era. Therefore, answer is answer number 2, prehistoric era. Right? Answer is answer number 2, prehistoric era. All right. This answer number 2. An example of political structure for the first time in the history. For the first time, political structure was expanded during the early historic era. Remember that. Then I will teach you about the political structure. Underline early historic era. Answer for the 6th question is answer number 1. Right. What do you mean by politics? Politics mean one person is ruling a group of people. Now in Sri Lanka, Anurukumara Disanayaka is ruling us. We are under Anurukumara Disanayaka, president. Harini Amarasuriya, we are under her. She is a prime minister. Politics mean one person becomes powerful more than another person. In the prehistoric era, can you see any politics in the structure? No. In the proto-historic era, was there any politics? No. Political structure for the first time started during the which period? Early historic era. Political structure first started during the early historic era. Right? Write down question 6. Okay. In the early historic era, Lamai, there is a person called Guhapati or Gahapati or Gruhapati. In the early historic era, there was a person called Gruhapati. There was a person called Gruhapati. Who is a Gruhapati, Lamai? Gruhapati means the chief of the family, leader of the family. In the prehistoric era, we did not have a leader for the family. In the proto-historic era, we did not have the leader for the family. But for the first time, a leader comes from the family. Right? Therefore, that is what we call as Gruhapati. chief householder. What is Gruhapati lamai? Chief householder. He is the leader of the house. Any decisions related to the family is taken by the Gruhapati. Any important decisions related to the family is taken by the Gruhapati. Therefore, is Gruhapati is an important person? Yes. He takes decisions regarding the family. And then Lamai, we have another person, right, who is more powerful. After the Gruhapati, we have another person. Who is that? We'll draw him first. Right after Gruhapati, we have another powerful person. He is known as Gamika. He is known as Gamika. Who is the Gamika Lamai? Gamika means the chief of the village. Gamika means the chief of the village. He is the leader of the village. Any important activities within the village are done under the continuous supervision of the Gamika. Gamika gives the leadership to the village. If there is any problem in the village, now let's write down what are his duties. You will learn this in the unit. We are starting next week, right? Evolution of political power in Sri Lanka. Right? What are the duties of Gamika? Number one, solving problems, right? Between the villagers, right? Or between villages, he will solve the problem. And then Lamai, administration of the village, maintenance of the village, administration of the village. Gamika will take care about that. Alright, solving the problem and problems related to the marriage affairs. Now let's say a bride from one village is getting ready to marry another person from another village. Then in that marriage transaction, Gamika will interfere and help for the marriage, for help for the marriage affair. Problems related to the marriage, right? And then Lamai, problems related to the trading affairs. That means, let's say I am trading with another village person. If there is any problem, Gamika will come in between, right? Trading affairs. So likewise, Gamika gave leadership to the village activities, right? If there is any problem in the village, Gamika will come forward in order to solve the problem. Therefore, when we choose the Gamika Lamai, we choose the most, right? We choose the most. What is it? Education? No, we choose the most, right, wealthiest person. Therefore, wealth is also important in order to get this position. Plus, power is also important. Therefore, the most wealthiest person, right, is considered to be the most powerful person, and he is being chosen as the Gamika. That is the reason why Gamika takes an important place. Hari. Therefore, mainly in the political structure. In the unit number 2, we have to learn. In the unit number 3, we are learning another political structure, which is Parumaka. Now it is not important. In the next week unit, we will learn it. Gruhapati, chief of the family. Gamika, chief of the village. Right? There are essay type questions. Particularly, they ask you to explain about Gamika. Right now, when you are learning this, you feel like easy, but you have to practice writing answers. That is the reason why I'm asking you all to do these papers. Right? I'm asking you all to do these papers. When you do this paper and when you get your papers marked, right, then only you will understand your mistake. Right? Then only you will understand your mistake. Without writing the paper, there's no point of just joining for the theory class. You will have to write the paper. Writing is important. Then you should get the marks, that you should understand your weakness, and then that you should correct your weakness. That is very important. Right. Therefore, now write down question number 6 and write down this one, Gruhapati and Gamika. Right. Okay. So put a thumbs up. Did you all understand this 100% well? People who are there on YouTube as well. Did you all understand this? Okay, now? Hari. Nice. Now, take out your paper and write down this one and put down. Then we'll discuss the next questions. you have any question, you can ask from me. No, Ikram, on a different day, right? On a separate day that I'll give you the chance, right? Not now. Right. Then we'll move into the next question. Question number 7. Question number 7. From among the following, which prehistoric place consists of information on curled and buried? Right. It is Batadomba Lena. Trading village means Lamai Niamgam. Right. Niamgam. Kasikaragama means write down villages where farmers lived. Olagam means earlier people lived in those villages, right, near the tanks, but now the people has gone away from those villages. Villages deserted by the people, right? Kevattagam means villages where fishermen lived. Okay, write down those as well. Underline the incorrect statement about Gamika out of the following. Gamika is the chief of the village. That is a correct statement. Acted in affairs such as marriage, trade. That is a correct statement. Maintain the tank system. No, Lamai. Gamika has nothing to do with the tank system. Therefore, answer is answer number 3. They had enough wealth. As I told you, they had the wealth. What is Kumbukaragama? Kumbukaragama means villages where potters lived. Sorry. What is approximate number of years that is assumed from today to say that the Homo sapien human beings lived in Sri Lanka? That is 125,000 years ago. Right. Geometric microstone tools. Right. Hari. Geometric microstone tools mean Lamai. There was no any technology in the prehistoric era. This is the question number 12. Question number 12. Now, if you look at the prehistoric era, Lamai, right, when it comes to the prehistoric era of Sri Lanka, as I told you, there is no much evidence about their technology. There is no much evidence about their technology. But if you want to speak about their technology, only proof that you have, right, in order to speak about their technology is the geometric microstone tools. Why we call it as geometric microstone tools, Lamai? If you look at those tools, now let me draw like this. This is the tool. Now this is a geometric shape. Right, number one is there is a geometric shape for this. There is a geometric shape. Okay. And then Lamai, they are very small. That is the reason why I use the word called micro. Ne? Number two is Lamai, not more than, right? This is not more than 4.5 centimeter. They are not more than 4.5 centimeter. That is why very small. 4.5 centimeter means Lamai, very small. Number three is, in order to make those geometric stone tools, they used more quartz, right? There is a type of stone called mineral called quartz, and then Lamai, they use less kahanda. You have to understand this. In order to make this geometric microstone tools, they used more quartz and less kahanda. Right? Therefore, these are the main three features that you need to understand under the geometric microstone tools. Harine? Right. Now, write down this one and put down. Clear? If you have any question, you can ask from me. Gamika does not maintain the tank and water system. Okay, Rashida. But they are responsible for the trade between the villages. You need to understand that. Okay. Am I clear? Because mainly tank systems are maintained by Parumaka. Now you don't know what is Parumaka. We are learning it in our next part. Answer for the third one is Huda. Answer number 3. Answer for the third one is answer number 3. Now, let's move into the next question. Underline the incorrect answer. It is not more than 4.5 centimeter. That is a correct answer. No? Use more kahanda stones. No, Lamai. More quartz, less kahanda. That is the incorrect statement. That is the incorrect statement. That is the incorrect statement. Hari. Okay, no any doubt so far. Right. What is the long-term geographical change that have influenced the origin of the protohistoric era? Before the protohistoric era, Lamai, there was a cool climate in the world. Okay. That is what we call as the Ice Age. Therefore, people who lived in the prehistoric era, they did not have the chance to do the cultivation. They did not have the chance to do the agriculture. But during that time period, right, after the prehistoric era, at the end of the prehistoric era, in the geography in the world, the climate changes into a somewhat warm climate, which is suitable to do the agriculture. We call it as Holocene era. Therefore, Holocene era made a favorable environment. It created a favorable environment, a warm environment, which is suitable for agriculture. That is the reason why in the protohistoric era, people conducted agriculture. People did agriculture. Hari? Right. 14 question. Which is not a place relevant to the megalithic burial system constructed for the death in this country during the protohistoric era? If you look at Lamai, the protohistoric era, right? When it comes to the protohistoric era, Lamai, there is a megalithic burial system. Now, if you look at the prehistoric era, I'll teach you the burial system of the prehistoric era. Then you will understand the protohistoric era. Now, whatever the notes that I am giving, make sure that you write it on the paper and attach that to the paper and maintain a file. Hari. Then, Lamai, if you look at the burial system of the prehistoric era, if you look at burial system of prehistoric era, once a person die, Lamai, they used to dig a very big pit in the ground. Right? They used to dig a very big pit in the ground. Therefore, number one is Lamai, they used to dig a very big pit in the ground. And then Lamai, they used to put the person inside, the dead body inside. They used to put the dead body inside. Once after putting the dead body inside Lamai, they are covering the dead body. They are covering the dead body using the garbage. They are covering the dead body using the garbage. Why are they covering the dead body, Lamai? Soon the dead body will decay. Right? Soon the dead body will decay if they cover that with the garbage. After the dead body decays, right? After the dead body decays, Lamai, they take out the skull and color it with red ochre. Right? This is kind of a paint they are using in order to color the skull. You know what is a skull, no? The head part of the person, a man, a human. They are coloring it with the red color, ochre or anything. Therefore, their way of burial system was very basic. They had a very basic burial system. This existed in the prehistoric era. But in the protohistoric era, their burial system changed. Now they are starting to make kind of a, right, using the stones, they are making a square shape and putting the dead persons, right, after burning the dead body, they take the ash and put inside the clay pots and burying the clay pots, right, urn burial. Now, Lamai, there's a systematic burial, right, rather than just putting the person inside like animals and covering with the garbage, taking the person out, coloring with the red color ochre, rather than following this method. It's a very basic method. Now they are following in the protohistoric era, they are following a very different system. That is why we call it as megalithic burial system, methodical burial system. Now, if you look at Yati Galpota, Galsohon Kanatta, Galevela area, you have the protohistoric burial system. But Lamai, this type of system, you can see it in the prehistoric places. For example, like Pahiyangala. So in those places, Ravana L, Batadumbalena, you can see a very basic, right, level of burying the dead body. Therefore, now write down this also, burial system of prehistoric era. Write down this. At the end of this session, Lamai, right, I want to 100% recap this lesson, okay, without any doubts. Now, already we have done this in the theory class, okay, but I'm trying my level best in order to make sure that you all understand this 100%. Hari, write down burial system of prehistoric era and write down this one and put down. Hari, right. If you have any question, you can ask from me. Are you doing paper class for history? We are having our grade 10 history class, grade 11 history class. In that class, we are doing the theory and we are doing the papers. So I don't do paper separately, theory separately. We have only one class, grade 10 history, grade 11 history. Right? So in those classes, we do the theory, we discuss papers, past papers, right, revision papers, and everything. Okay. So after the session, I'll ask class admin in order to send the class details. Sorry. So if you all want any details, that you can contact our class admin at the end of the session. I'll give the phone number. Sorry. Now, Lama will go into the next question. Which is not a place relevant to the megalithic burial system, Pahiyangala. Because Lamai, megalithic burial system was there in the protohistoric era, right? Pahiyangala was there in the prehistoric era. Pahiyangala was there in the prehistoric era. Therefore, write down Pahiyangala is related to the prehistoric era. Pahiyangala is related to prehistoric era. I told you this already, no? What was the main index that can be seen in the early historic era? What is the main index? The main index is the expansion of the small village tanks. Not a characteristics of the proto-historic era. Burn pots characteristic, iron tools are characteristic, methodical burial system. Nomadic lifestyle is related to the, write down, related to the, you all have the paper, no? You all can download it through our channel. Related to the prehistoric era. Related to the prehistoric era. Right, and then after the class, I'll upload the marking scheme to the LMS website. You all can download the marking scheme from the website. Hurry, I'll upload it. I'll ask the class coordinator to upload it. Hurry. Then which is not a responsibility assigned on Gamika during the past administration. Representing the village is a responsibility. Solving issue is a responsibility. Solving issue in the family. Gamika and family, there is no connection. In order to solve the problem in the family, we have the Gruhapati, we have the Gahapati. Therefore, number 3 is the not a responsibility. Sorry. Not a chaina crop out of the following. Paddy is not a chaina crop. You all know that. Paddy is not a chaina crop. Paddy is a paddy cultivation, right? You have paddy cultivation. Underline the king who made the Pannakadua copper plate. There's a nice story. I'll explain that story as well. But underline answer as Vijayabahu number 1 and right, write down this one. Right, there's a nice story about our king Vijayabahu number 1. Okay, now my question number 19. Now, if you look at this king Vijayabahu number 1, when he was small, during his childhood, his name was Kirti. When he was a child, his name was Kirti. Unfortunately, during his childhood, there are so many invasions from foreign countries. There are so many Chola invasions when he was a child. There were so many Chola invasions from India. Cholas invaded into Sri Lanka. Since Kirti was a small child, due to the Chola invasion, there is a threat to his life. There is a threat to his life. Therefore, at that time, a person called Sitnaru bin Budalna, right? A royal officer called Sitnaru bin Budalna, right? An officer called Sitnaru bin Budalna. An officer called Sitnaru bin Budalna Lamai, he gives protection to the Kirti. He protects the Kirti. He gives security to Kirti. Then after, what happens is Lamai, in the mind of Kirti, right, in his idea, Sitnaru bin Budalna is kind of a noble person because he gave protection to the child Kirti, small Kirti, right, during the invasion, Chola invasion. Then Lamai, with the time, Kirti becomes the king of Polonnaruwa in the name of Vijayabahu number one, right? Kirti chooses Polonnaruwa, right? Now he is King Vijayabahu number one. He becomes the king of Polonnaruwa. He becomes the king of Polonnaruwa. He becomes the king of Polonnaruwa. Once after that he becomes a king Lamai, he did not forget about Sitnaru Bimbudalna. He did not forget about Sitnaru Bimbudalna. For the support, for the protection Sitnaru Bimbudalna gave Lamai as a respect. Now King Vijayabahu number one is giving him a copper plate called Panna Kaduwa copper plate. Right? King Vijayabahu number one is, as a respect, he is giving a copper plate called Kannakaduwa copper plate. In the Pannakaduwa copper plate, all the required information, right? How he protected his respect towards Budalna, his love towards Budalna, right? So likewise, Lamai, he mentions all of those things in the Pannakaduwa copper plate. Now I'm asking a question from unit number one. Pannakaduwa copper plate, is that a archaeological source or else a literary source? Put it to the chat box. Pannakaduwa copper plate is a archaeological source or else a literary source. Ragalanan, very good. Kidash, correct. What about others? People who are on YouTube also may, right? Put the answer. Put the answer, Lamai. So some names that I can't read, the chat goes that speed, right? Very good, Fatima, correct. And what about others? If I did not read your names, quickly put it to the chat box. Sheza, correct. Zamli, correct. Okay, Dafik, correct. Nice. Hari. It is Lamai archaeological source. Write down archaeological source. Right? Therefore, story is simple. When he was a small child, Sitnaru Mimbudalna is giving him the protection. And then when he becomes the king, as a respect, he gives a copper plate writing about the incidents and as a respect. Hari? Right. Now write down question 19 and make a liagan. Write down this and put down. If you have any question, you can ask from me. Yes, Kida, she comes from a kingship lineage. That's the thing. Right. Then lamai the 20th question. What is the inscription which mention about Dasagam Mettan Kaludiya Pakuna? Dasagam Mettan means lamai 10 chief householders are getting together and creating a panel. Write down a panel consists of 10 chief householders. A panel consists of 10 chief householders. Right. Now put a thumbs up. Did you understand all these 20 MCQs? Did you all understand all these 20 MCQs? 10 other. Okay, now? Hurry. Now shall we mark the maps? Shall we mark the maps? Hurry. All right. Now let's mark the maps. Now I have given 10 Sri Lankan places and 5 world places. I will mark the maps. Alright. Now lamai in our website we have uploaded the maps, right? So this type of maps only that you have to use for the exams. This Sri Lankan map. Okay, now take out your maps lamai. Maps tika ganna. Now take out your maps. This is the world map, no? Okay, then first we'll mark the world map and come back into the Sri Lankan map. Right, now open your Sri Lankan maps. First we'll mark the Sri Lanka. Hari, Pom Parippu. Right, the first place that you have to mark is lamai Pom Parippu, no? The first place is Pom Parippu. Pom Parippu is lamai somewhere over here. Pom Parippu, mark it on your map, right? Mark it on your map lamai Pom Parippu over here. Mark Pom Parippu. The first place is Pom Parippu. Pom Parippu. Mark Pom Parippu. What is the next place that I have given to mark? Kirindi Oyane. Yes. Kirindi Oya. Hari. Now go to the south part of the country. Here you have the Kirindi Oya. Kirindi Oya. Then what is the place you have to mark? Pulatisipura. You have to mark lamai Pulatisipura. Mark Kirindi Oya. Mark quickly with me. Pulatisipura. Pulatisipura means lamai. Now this is River Mahavali, you know. Somewhere over here in this bend, you have the Pulatisipura. Mark Pulatisipura. 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 Then what is the place lamai? Me Devi Nuwara. Devi Nuwara and Nallura very easy. Devi Nuwara means lamai this part, right? The bottom line part of Sri Lanka. We call it as Dondra head. Devi Nuwara. Mark Devi Nuwara. Mark Devi Nuwara. Hari. Mark Devi Nuwara. Hari. Pulatisipura is here. Over here. Then lamai Nallur is in the northern part of the country. Over here. Nallur. Nallur. Now, Lamai, when you go through these places, now in grade 11 also we are discussing papers. Now, whatever the places that are you in the papers, and we discuss past papers also, it is more than enough if you go through those, right? May some of the teachers do those seminars, right? Map marking seminar over Boru. Okay, now this map marking Lamai, we are not cloudy as Tolamino. Whatever things that we are marking, that you can go through this. Only 9 marks out of 100. If someone right believes that map mark is difficult for me, so I can't get an A for history, that is completely wrong. I have proved that in 23, 24, 25. Right? Even people who are very weak in map marking got an A pass. Right? Don't worry about that. Write down Nallur. What is the other place, Lamai? Madru Oya, ne? Madru Oya. Madru Oya. You can see the screen, no? Yes, I have shared the okay, Devipura. You can see the screen, I think. People who can't see, there's a problem in their connection. Hurry. Go to their connection and check it. I have shared the Hurry Pulatisipara again. I'll show you this. Pulatisipara Lamai. Right? Maduru Oya is somewhere over here, this area. Okay? Maduru Oya. Maduru Oya. Pulatisipara is over here. Maduru Oya. Mark it. After Maduru Oya, you have the Frederick Fort, right? Maduru Oya. Frederick Fort is somewhere over here, right? In Trincomalee, right? Frederick Fort. I'll show it finally also, right? Frederick Fort. In the marking scheme also lamai check. In the marking scheme, I have given Kaduru Oya, right? I think the person who typed did a mistake. It should be Maduru Oya, okay? Now when I send the marking scheme, correct it. Then lamai Puttalam that you know, Puttalam is somewhere over here. Puttalam. And then lamai Raigama means that you all know, right? Raigama is here. Right, somewhere over here. And then lamai Shigiriya. Shigiriya you can easily mark somewhere over here, right? Near the Pulapisipura. Shigiriya. Okay, mark these places. Mark these places. In the scheme, yes, I have given Kaduru Oya, right? I'll double check it, Maduru Oya and Kaduru Oya, and I'll inform in the next week class. Anyways, I have you have to change it as Maduru Oya, right? But anyways, I'll double check it. All right. Okay. If you want to correct it, quickly correct it. Okay, now. All right. If you are still writing, get a screenshot. And then Lamai will go into the world map. Hurry. In the world map, the problem is that I can't turn this. In the same way, we will mark it. Hurry. This is the world map. Right. Where is Venice? Right. Now there's a place called Venice that you have to mark. Venice is there in Italy. Okay. You will learn about that in the Renaissance lesson. Right. You have to mark the Venice somewhere over here. Nice. Then Lamai Holland. Holland is here. You have to turn it to the other side. Now here in my document there is an issue. Then Lamai Persian Gulf. Persian Gulf is here. Persian Gulf. In India, you have the Calcutta. Calcutta is to the left side, somewhere over here. Calcutta. Right, Calcutta. Then Lama, you have the Sumatra island somewhere over here, Sumatra. Then Lama, you have the Korean peninsula here, Korea area. This is Japan, right? This is Korea, Korean peninsula. Just check the marking scheme. If there is any correction, I'll make it and send it. Alright, Korean peninsula. Okay, mark it and put done. Then we can go for the part 2 question. Okay, done. People who are watching on YouTube also, put done. Hurry. Now, lamai, we'll move into the paper number 2. We'll move into the paper number 2. So if any one of you want that, you all can watch the watch the recording also. State 2 prehistoric places in Sri Lanka which depict the technology. Now I will share the marking scheme. Okay, now I'll share the marking scheme to the board. After the class, you all can download it through our LMS website and go through the marking scheme as well. Hurry. Right. Now go through the marking scheme. Here in the marking scheme that I have given the answers. Right. Question number 2. State 2 prehistoric places in Sri Lanka which depicts the technology of Sri Lanka. Right. When it comes to prehistoric places, I told you there are very few examples. There are very few evidences in order to learn about the technology. Out of that, Iranamadu formation and Ratnapura, the stone tools that you can find in the Iranamadu and the Ratnapura, right? The soil layer, using a scientific analysis, you can understand about the technology that existed during the prehistoric place. Therefore, the answer that I have given is Iranamadu and Ratnapura. Therefore, if you write down these two answers, if you write it down as Iranamadu and Ratnapura, you are going to get 4 marks. Mention 3 lowland wet zone caves of Sri Lanka. I am asking you the lowland wet zone caves, not the camp. It is the caves, the natural caves. Pahiyangala, Batadombalena, Kuruvita, sorry, Kitulgala Belilena are the wet zone caves. So if you just write it down for writing, because in history paper, if they ask you to write down, you have to write. If they ask you to mention, you have to mention it. You are going to get 3 marks, right? You are going to get the 3 marks. Hurry. Briefly explain about the factors such as technology, nature of people's body in the prehistoric era. Now, in the marking scheme, I have given only the guideline, right? But you have to write down these essay type answers in the proper structure that I have already taught you many times. Okay. So you have to write down essay type question to the O-level standard structure that we discussed in the class, right? But using these headings. Now they have asked you to explain about the technology and they have asked you to explain about the lifestyle. Am I clear? Therefore, you have to explain using these headings. Now, when it comes to the technology of the prehistoric era, it is compulsory for you to explain about the geometric microstone tools. Geometric microstone tools are the best example for the prehistoric era people's technology. As I told you, use more quartz and less kahanda. And also there are some other tools which don't have a geometric shape. For such tools, we call it as non-geometric. There is no any geometric shape. Therefore, we call it as non-geometric. Right. Therefore, you have to explain about that. When it comes to the lifestyle of them, right? Male. So not the lifestyle, no? I have asked you to explain about nature of the physical body. No, this is not lifestyle. Change it to nature of physical body. Nature of physical body. Therefore, when it comes to a male lamai, 174 centimeter in height and his brain size is 1600 cubic centimeter. But a female is 166 centimeter and the brain size is 920 cubic centimeter. Therefore, the height of a male is large, more than the female, and then the brain size of the male is more than the female, right? Mostly they live between 35 to 40 years. That was their lifespan. Then briefly explain 3 factors of the political structure. Now, Lamai, in the early historic era, if they ask you a question to explain about the structure of the political structure of the early historic era, number 1, you have to explain about the Gruhapati. As I have already explained you. Gruhapati means whom? The person, the chief household, about his role in the family. Then you have to explain about Lamai Gamika. Who is the Gamika? Chief of the village. Then Lamai, you need to explain about Dasagam Mattan. Dasagam Mattan means it's a panel It's a group of 10 chief householders who are getting together in order to solve if there is any problem related to the. Now in the temple, they used to give dana. You all know that, no? In the temples, lamai, they used to give dana. If there's any problem in giving the dana, Dasagam Mattan will come in between and solve those problems. Hari? Therefore, you have to explain this in the proper essay type structure that I give in the class. So you can refer the page number 29 of this grade 10. Right now, lamai, these marking schemes, right? We prepare these marking schemes with our highest, utmost effort. Did you understand? These papers are set according to standard. We are giving you the marking scheme when O levels are near. Just by looking at this marking scheme, you can get an idea. Am I clear, Lamai? Therefore, now itself, let's work. As I told you yesterday in the grade 10 commerce class, now itself that you have to plan this. Right? Now itself that you have to work for 4 hours, 5 hours per day and come into the right track. Okay, no kidash, right? Dasagam Mattan, inside this you have the Gahapatis only. Okay, we can't say there are Gamikas, but there can be situations. Name 5 environmental zones which existed in Sri Lanka. Semi-arid zone, lowland dry zone, lowland intermediate dry zone, wet zone, arid zone, mountainous dry intermediate zone. You can write down any of the answers. Name 3 settlements which develop themselves around the tank systems. Okay. Now, Lamai, in the history of Sri Lanka, as I told you, during the early historic era, now this is the part 2 paper, question number 2 of the part 2. During the early historic era, Lamai, during the early historic era, in order to do the agriculture, they had 2 main options. They had 2 main choices in order to do the agriculture. They had 2 main options. One is, in order to do the agriculture using the rainwater, conduct agriculture, because during the monsoon rain, you get enough rain. Therefore, conduct agriculture using rainwater. That is option number 1 you have. But the problem is in our country, we don't have proper tank systems, or else during some time, right, in some part of the year, you don't get enough rain. Now, these days, right, I think from the March beginning, right, up to now, you don't have proper rain. So today it rained in my area. What about your area, Aslamai? And they have released the news saying that it will rain in the upcoming days. What about your area? Is it raining? But I'm really happy if it rains, right? Because we had that much of heat, isn't it? Right? We had a very big, very right, bad type of a temperature, right? These days, ne? Is it raining? Raining nam maru. I'm really happy if it is raining. Why? Because the heat that we had. Okay. No. Right? In Dehiwala, right? Not Aturu area. Okay. All right. Is it raining? No. Excellent. Then Lamai, one method is conduct agriculture using the rainwater. The other one is building the tanks. You are using the tank water in order to do the agriculture. Because of that, in Sri Lanka, there are some villages, right, around the tank systems. Now, let's say, now here we have a tank system. Now, let's say we have the tank system. There are some villages around the tank system, right? There are some villages, Lamai, around the tank system. Why are they around the tank system? In order to make their agricultural activities successful, right? Because the only hope that they had related to their living was agriculture. Therefore, some of the villages were around the tank system. For such villages, we are giving a name. What is that name? Vapi Gama. For such villages, we are giving a name called Vapi Gama. Therefore, Vapi Gama means, right, the villages, settlements around the tank systems. Right? So write down this note also. Write down this note also. Early historic era. Now, Vapi Gama, what are the examples? Right? I have given the example in the marking scheme. Hundiri Vapi Gama, Sumana Vapi Gama, Kadaha Vapi Gama, Vihara Vapi Gama. Those are some of the examples. Right now, go to the marking scheme, and I have sent the marking scheme. I have uploaded the marking scheme to the group, sorry, to the website. Can you go and download it? When you go to the website, there is something called document section, right, under your class, right? Go and download it from the document section. Go and download it from the document section. I have uploaded it as grade 10 unit 2 history marking scheme. Okay. All right. Then I will move into the question. Therefore, what are the examples, right, which develop themselves around tank system? Sumana Vapigama, Kundari Vapigama, Vihara Vapigama, and then lamai Kadaha Vapigama. Sumana, Hundiri Vapigama, Kadaha Vihara Vapigama. Briefly explain two changes that took place during the protohistoric era. Now go to the first part of the story. When I was beginning the session, I told you, when I was beginning the discussion, I told you, in the protohistoric era, when compared with the prehistoric era, there is a very good development. Number one is megalithic burial system. You can write down. They use the clay pot burial system, not like the prehistoric era. Every time when you are writing an answer, you have to say that protohistoric era is very much developed. Prehistoric era is not that much developed. In the prehistoric era, there was no any development in the burial system. But in the protohistoric era, they buried themselves in, right, inside the stone, right? Stone splinters made in the shape of the square, right? We drew the pictures and we discussed this. And if not, they used to burn the dead body. They used to put the ashes inside the clay pots, and they used to put the clay pots, right? They used to bury the clay pots, which we call it as the urn burials. So likewise, their burial system was very megalithic. And then lamai building permanent settlement. You have to explain about the Udaranchamadama house. When it comes to Udaranchamadama house, you can find it in the Ratnapura district. Only example for the protohistoric era house. In that Udaranchamadama house, you can see the clay pots. You can find the evidence of the clay pots as well. And also, if you look at that, there are some beauty equipments used by the women in the Udaranchamadama house, right? So you all know that nowadays people used to apply eyebrow. So likewise, in order to apply the kohul, we call it as to apply the dye on the lady's eyes, they have used sticks, iron sticks were there. And in order to make the beauty items, in order to make the beauty related items, they have used the grinding stone. And in the Udaranchamadama house, the roof, they have made it using leaf called iluk. And the wall, they have made it using the clay, We call it as wattle and daub, right? Using the clay and using the sticks. Therefore, you can explain about the permanent settlements as well. Then Lamai, they have also made the clay pots. Best example is the evidence to say that they have used the clay pots. You can find it in the Udaranchamadama house. In the Udaranchamadama house, there are evidences for the usage of the clay pots. They have nicely colored the clay pots, right? Symmetrical designs are there. You can explain about that. Usage of iron in order to do the day-to-day activities like chopping, right? Maybe, right, they even did hunting, no? From the Udaranchamadama house, you can understand they did not completely abandon the hunting. There are some bone parts also inside the house, which means even though now they are doing the agriculture, they did not completely abandon the hunting. Shape, okay, they did the small part of hunting as well. Then Lamai, in order to cut, in order to scratch, in order to dig, right, for the day-to-day activities, that they use the iron as well. You can explain about any of those. Every time, remember, when you are writing an essay type answer, right, you need to follow my structure that I have given, the O-level standard structure, plus you have to write down all the points. There is nothing called how many pages that I should write for an essay type question, how many paragraphs that I need to write, how many words that I need to write. This is not history. This is not English essays. Okay, this is history essays. If the facts are there, if the points are there, 100% sure that you are going to get the marks. That you are going to get the marks. Hari? Right. And then my final question, describe briefly about the house of Udarancha Madama. Right? Briefly explain about the house of Udarancha Madama. The final question. Right? Udarancha Madama house. From the Udarancha Madama house, as I explained now, let's write down the note. If you look at that Udarancha Madama house, Lamai, the length of the Udarancha Madama house is, as I can remember, 10.20 meter. And the width of the house is, Lamai, 6.80 meter. Am I correct? 10.20, 6.80. The wall has been made out of wattle and daub. If you look at the huts, Lamai, they have been made out of for a clay and the sticks and everything. And the roof has been thatched. Right? The roof has been thatched with some leaves called iluk. In order to make the roof, Lamai, they have used something called iluk. Inside this Udarancha Madama house, Lamai, you can discover clay pots. Inside this Udarancha Madama house, Lamai, you can discover some of the bone parts of animal, which means they did a little bit of hunting. Right? And also, Lamai, you can find out some iron tools as well. Stone tools were also there. And then, Lamai, you can find out, right, some kohul stick to apply kohul on ladies' eyes. Iron stick, right? Iron stick to apply kohul. Kohul means a kind of a dye, like eyebrow. Kohul on ladies' eyes. Okay, as a beauty culture. What else, Lamai? They had grinding stone, right? Grinding stone means you all know, right? Ammi, we call it as Aramean, right? For the grinding purpose, right? Grinding stones. They have used the grinding stones. So likewise, these are some of the things you can find it in the Udarancha Madama house. From the Udarancha Madama house, what can you understand? You can understand about the technology of protohistoric, right? Technology of the protohistoric era. Therefore, this Udarancha Madama house stands out as an evidence, right? As an example for the technology of the protohistoric era. Am I clear, Lamai? Alright. Now take out your paper, write down about Udarancha Madama house as well. Write down about Udarancha Madama house. People who are on YouTube also, tell me, did you all understand up to here? People who are watching on YouTube, I want all of you to give me a feedback. Grinding stone, miris gala. Kind of miris gala only. Right, you are correct, Kudash. Right, Hari. Then lamai, with that our paper discussion is completely done. Okay, with this our paper discussion is completely done. Next week we are starting unit number 3. Next week we are starting unit number 3, theory. Abdullah, I understood very well. Excellent. Now we are going to play a small game, right? A small thing that you all have to do from your side. Okay, so today that I did it as a free also. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute.